Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency, 504-556-0809 or davemietteINSagency.com.
For over 48 years, Southern Tires and Auto Repair has provided services across the New Orleans metro area. Southern Tires offers a range of tires for all vehicles and ATVs. We also have a full suite of auto repair options, including brake repair, rim repair, custom exhaust, steering and suspension, and so much more. Southern Tires and Auto Repair, 2550 Hickory Avenue in Metairie.
Cnc Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, CNC provides patient-centered care for your entire family. CNC Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports live from our state-of-the-art Pontchartrain production studios. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we will cover all the home teams: Saints, LSU, Tulane, Pelicans. Might even talk about those Louisiana Raging Cajuns if we got a little bit of time before the end of the program, and breaking it down for us, one of the best we have here in New Orleans. From the Athletic New Orleans, from Fox 8 Sports, Jeff Duncan joins us on the program tonight. Jeff, welcome to the show. Always good to have you, my friend.
Thanks. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you. And of course, we want to remind everybody about this little gem right here, Jeff's newest book. It's flying off the shelves. Jeff, tell the folks a little bit about the book, how folks can get it.
Yeah, we're really excited. It's filling out a lot of orders right now for the holidays. I think it's a popular Christmas gift.
Yes.
Yeah, it's about the unique symbiotic relationship between Sean Payton and Drew Brees, a deep dive into what's made that offense special, what's made Sean Payton and Drew Brees so successful in their respective careers, and really this historic run. Look, you're an old school New Orleanian, you've seen it all. I mean, this is the best period in Saints history, so we kind of get behind the scenes of what's made this such a special relationship and partnership between Brees and Payton.
Now, how can folks get the book as they're watching us today, or again on one of our recorded shows over the weekend?
Well, if you want to reach out, anything on my social media accounts, and you want to get a personalized signed copy, we still have orders that we can fill out, get them out to you, shipped out in time for the holidays. Just go to the Payton and Brees book Facebook page, or just reach out to me at my Twitter account at @JeffDuncan_, and we can make sure we can get those orders filled, and I can personalize it to somebody, make a great Christmas gift.
Beautiful. Now, of course, Jeff is a contributor to Fox 8 Sports, also again with the Athletic New Orleans. And how can folks subscribe to the Athletic?
Well, The Athletic, you just go to theathletic.com website. Right now, we've got a great deal, Eric. You sign up right now, you get a free subscription along with the one you pay for, and it's a discounted rate right now, so you basically get 2 for 1. You can give a subscription as a gift. We've got over 1 million subscribers now, and we're growing at an incredible rate. And I've said it before, it's a really unique situation. You can get all your local home teams. We have 6 people covering local sports here in the New Orleans and Louisiana area. And then you get all the national platform stuff and international as well. So you can kind of put an a la carte homepage together for all your favorite sports teams.
Now, again, speaking of the Athletic, you had a brand new article that came out this morning. Talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, I was really excited. I had a lot of fun. Sometimes you get into a story and you really, really get into it, right? I mean, and this one was on the 2017 Saints draft class, which is a historic class. Any Saints fan or New Orleanian knows what that class has meant to this current run of success. Basically, the Saints have won more games now since 2017 than any team in the NFL. 47 wins in the regular season, and they've won 3 straight division titles, getting ready to wrap up a 4th division title. Never been done, history of the Saints franchise. And the foundation, the core of these teams has been that 2017 draft class. And I was fortunate to get a lot of time with Jeff Ireland, who oversees the Saints drafts, and Mickey Loomis, the general manager. Spent some time with Sean Payton as well, getting some behind-the-scenes stories, going back to those days leading up to the draft and during the draft, taking you behind the curtain, inside the ropes, if you will, of the war room and what was going on. There were so many fascinating stories about how the Saints almost drafted Patrick Mahomes at number 11. They almost ended up with Reuben Foster at number 32 instead of Ryan Ramczyk. How they got Alvin Kamara, the behind-the-scenes dealing that took place to go get Alvin Kamara in the 3rd round. They got him at number 67 in that draft.
Crazy.
I mean, if they redrafted it now, he'd go in the top 10 talent.
Yep.
So it was an amazing run of it's I think a documentation of the Saints' preparation that went into that draft that made them have some good luck, because some of it was serendipity. The fact is, I mean, the fact that Marshawn Lattimore, the top corner, dropped to number 11 that year was very fortunate. If you go back and look at that top 10, there were a lot of strange picks. John Ross, wide receiver to the Bengals. No one had that going on. So some things happened that led to their luck. But then you also get insight into how Jeff Ireland and Mickey Loomis prepare for a draft, all the attention to detail that went into it that led them to be prepared for that moment.
It's on the Athletic website, and of course you can subscribe as well. Some little tidbits that you were able to take from that particular article that maybe you can tease the audience with?
Well, the workout that Alvin Kamara had, the one thing that was fascinating, Sean Payton now calls it the Magic Week. It was in March 21st, around that time period, about a month before the draft. They took the Saints private jet, the Brain Trust, Jeff Ireland, Mickey Loomis, flew to Lubbock, Texas for a private workout with Patrick Mahomes. And then the next day they flew to Knoxville, Tennessee, met with a bunch of Tennessee prospects, including Alvin Kamara, worked him out privately in Knoxville, had dinner. And then the next day they went up to Columbus, Ohio for the pro day at Ohio State University, where they saw Marshawn Lattimore. That 3-day period, that week, kind of crystallized the Saints draft. They ended up getting Marshawn Lattimore and Alvin Kamara. They left that workout with Alvin Kamara committed to finding him and targeting him in the draft. He was so impressive for them and ended up making a trade to get him. So there's a lot of details behind the scenes. That year also fascinating. They ended up in the war room that year. Drew Brees, 2 of his old Purdue teammates who had gone on a wild pig hunting trip that day and just happened to be invited into the war room when they came back that day. They were never there. And they also had Ryan Palmer and Jordan Spieth, PGA golfers, and their caddies in the war room. Very unusual to have these outsiders in the war room that day. And they were all there as Patrick Mahomes started falling in the draft. And they realized, they being Jeff Ireland and Mickey Loomis, that they may end up drafting Patrick Mahomes here at number 11. They were 2 picks away. And Sean Payton had to take Drew Brees out in the hallway and mention to him, hey, we might end up taking your successor here in a pick or two, because he's highest guy graded on our board along with Marshawn Lattimore. And if Lattimore goes off the board here at number 10, we're going to take Patrick Mahomes. And Drew Brees said, that's fine, I understand. You got to follow your board and everything. He understood it. And by the time they got back in the room, Kansas City had traded up with Buffalo right ahead of the Saints. Took Mahomes, and the rest is history.
That's crazy. It really is. And, looking back on it now, because I can remember us, we were talking about this before we came on the show today, I remember the debate on the radio show. Again, looking at it, short-term, long-term. Again, with Kansas City jumping in front of the Saints and grabbing Mahomes. Is it better to have a Marshawn Lattimore with a Drew Brees, and then, in the short term, and then long term, when you look at, we didn't know what Patrick Mahomes was going to be in terms of a pro quarterback, but the long term with Mahomes after Brees retires, what does that look like? I mean, you look at it now, you say to yourself, short term, there's no doubt the Lattimore thing works, but long term, having Mahomes following a Drew Brees, wow. I mean, there's no drop off there.
That's a question that Sean Payton said they ask every year in the draft. Short term, long term. Have that internal debate, something they hash out behind the scenes all the time. And I think we have to remember what the Saints were like going into that draft. They were coming off 3 straight 7-9 seasons.
Right.
Their defense was awful, historically bad. That was the year, the offseason, they made the trade of Brandon Cooks to acquire New England's number 32 pick, the first-round draft pick. They did that with fixing their defense. That was the top objective in that draft.
Right.
So it made sense for them to go get Marshawn Lattimore, the number 1 cornerback. We know how many struggles the Saints have had at cornerback. They've never had a Pro Bowl corner leading up. Well, it's been decades since Eric Allen.
Right.
So it made sense for them to address defense there. They already had a Hall of Fame quarterback. But you're right. Just think how different things would be if they would draft Mahomes.
Yeah, no doubt. And then, of course, you talked about the ramshack Reuben Foster situation with and go ahead and talk about it, because Ireland, they were on the phone with Foster, right?
Yeah, they were on the phone, and Reuben Foster was highly graded.
Yes, he was.
Everyone in the league had all kinds of problems off the field. We've seen that. His career's been a bust because of his struggles off the field. But as far as a football player at linebacker, he was a difference maker.
Yes, he was.
I talked to Jim Nagy, who's now the executive director of the Senior Bowl. He was with the Seattle Seahawks as a national scout at that time, and he said he thought Reuben Foster was the best player in the entire draft that year. So the Saints had to make that call, right? Were they going to fix their defense? They knew he had issues. They were on the phone with him. Reuben Foster's girlfriend at the time was from Baton Rouge, lived in Baton Rouge. So they thought that would help them, having close proximity to where his girlfriend was. And Sean Payton was on the phone with him and her 1 pick before the 32nd pick at number 31, and asking, will you, keep him on the straight and narrow? Will you be there for him if we select him? And while he was on the phone, the Niners traded up with Seattle, ended up taking Reuben Foster. So they got a little lucky there because they ended up with Ryan Ramczyk, who's an All-Pro.
Right, and of course, the story went on the phone with Peyton, clicks over, hangs up on Peyton, doesn't come back.
Right.
The 49ers take him. He goes, oh, well, I'm not going to have to see Peyton. But as you mentioned, serendipity, right? Because you end up getting a guy that is the best right tackle in football, might be the best tackle in football before it's all said and done, and a guy that's going to anchor your line for the next 10 years.
And I'll tell you what's interesting about that class, as I was going back and revisiting it, they had a bunch of players. Ryan Ramczyk one, Marshawn Lattimore another, Alvin Kamara, I think one more player, Al-Qadim Muhammad, who they got in the 6th round, who's had a productive career.
With Indianapolis.
All of them only had 1 year of starting experience in college. That's usually a red flag in the draft, but it shows you how the diligence of the Saints personnel department to dig behind that and still come up with the goods on these players to have the confidence to draft them, and they ended up being great players.
Right. You think back to that, and you mentioned the 3, 7, and 9 seasons. A lot of that had to do again with just the horrible drafts that they had. Again, and then the bringing Jeff Ireland over. And, of course, the difference that he's made in the draft room. Terry Fontenot, in terms of, again, what he does with pro personnel. Again, they did something this past year, elevating those guys, making them vice presidents, assistant general managers on both of their disciplines, which has been huge. Now, again, we're seeing Terry Fontenot go out, and he's at least getting some interviews for some general managers' jobs. Look, this dynamic duo has been great in terms of turning this franchise around. You can talk about what Peyton does on the field, but again, the lifeblood of any team is what they do with pro personnel and the draft, and they've done a fantastic job.
It's been one of the biggest changes in the organization for the better since Peyton took over. I think him overhauling the personnel department, and you have to give Mickey Loomis a lot of credit, because Mickey Loomis didn't have the ego to say, no,
that's right,
I'm not going to bring in someone.
Truth.
Jeff Ireland's been a general manager in the league.
doubt.
A lot of GMs would not do that. So the selflessness of Mickey Loomis for the betterment of the organization. And also, I think the other pillar in that changeover that Sean Payton made was overhauling the defensive staff.
True.
He had a lot of long-time loyal lieutenants on that staff.
That's right.
And he made the changes and brought in guys like Ryan Nielsen, Aaron Glenn, a bunch of really good coaches on the defense, and they fixed the defense now. They fixed the personnel department. We're seeing the results.
Yeah, I agree with you. With Bill Johnson, Vitt, Those are two guys that have been with him forever.
Right.
And of course, it was tough for him to make that change, even though a lot of us in the media and fans were calling for that. He did it, okay? And then I agree with you on the Mickey Loomis situation. Mickey Loomis has been selfless his entire time here in New Orleans, whether it's been with the Pelicans or the Saints. He could be a guy that says I'm the GM, I'm the guy that's in charge. He's always been a guy that's delegated and has always, again, passed on the accolades to, again, those that work with him.
Yeah, and I think him understanding that they have to get talent in there. Mickey understands what he doesn't know. He's very self-aware.
Right.
He doesn't come up from the personnel side
Right.
of the GM
Business
world.
side.
He was the business side. He understands that's not his strength, so they bring in a guy like Jeff Ireland, who's been a perfect fit in so many ways. And Jeff Ireland likes being behind the scenes. He's a kind of guy that's not really out front in front of the camera, isn't comfortable doing that. And so he's in a perfect role. It's really been a perfect marriage. And I think the Saints' ability to hang on to Terry Fontenot and Jeff Ireland is going to be big and difficult going forward.
Yes.
Because they've had such success here. People are going to want to bring those guys into their buildings.
Gail Bennett's going to keep paying them. Okay?
Right.
You know,
and they've already done that. They've given them raises.
Right. Raises.
But at some point,
titles. Right.
you can't pay them GM money to not be the GM.
There you go. Let's talk a little bit about what happened last week. Saints, again, were on a 9-game winning streak. They end up losing to Philadelphia 24-21. Before we get into the game itself, I want to talk a little bit about Taysom Hill and your thoughts on we've seen 4 starts of Taysom Hill so far. What are your thoughts on Taysom Hill?
Well, I think he looks like a guy that's only had 4 starts as an NFL
True.
quarterback.
I would agree with that.
You know, he's had some ups and downs. He's had some struggles. I think some of the little nuances that go into playing quarterback are things that he's trying to get better at. You know, holding the ball a little too long, going through his progressions a little too slowly. You know, getting the Saints in the right play call at the line of scrimmage. All those things require time, experience, and reps, and he has to learn that on the job. And look, he's gone 3-1 in that time. Clearly, he didn't play that well in the Eagles game, especially when you consider the Eagles secondary was riddled with injuries.
Yes.
They had a bunch of guys go down in the game with injuries. I thought they should have exploited that more, but also felt like that game was such an outlier performance, such a overall debacle in terms of effort, energy, focus, intensity, all those things. When the Saints are getting dominated like that along both lines of scrimmage, you know they didn't come to play.
That's right.
And it was too late to flip the switch at halftime like they did, and they paid the price for it. I thought this team was past that. Clearly they weren't. Human nature sets in sometimes. It was their 3rd straight road game. Everybody knew Philly was struggling.
Right.
They didn't know much about Jalen Hurts other than his Alabama tape. And I think they got caught with their pants down, and they suffered a loss. In the end, I don't think it's something we need to overly worry about. I still think this team's one of the best teams in football, and I think the fact that they're still healthy, relatively speaking, and one of the healthiest teams in the league going forward, I think that everything they want to accomplish is still there for them.
What surprised me was the game plan going in on both sides of the ball. In the past, we've seen Dennis Allen, when it comes to a mobile young quarterback, put a scheme up that ultimately, again, will confuse that quarterback, maybe take away the strength of that quarterback. We saw a Saints team that was undisciplined, with Jalen Hurts running around back there. Again, the bailout yardage that he got just from, again, when one read, it's not there, getting out of there, just crushed the Saints. So on the defensive side, little concerned with that. On the offensive side, I would have liked to have seen Taysom Hill be more like Jalen Hurts, utilize his dual threat ability. You know, again, I watched the Saints defensive line constantly going east and west. I can still see in my mind's eye Cam Jordan running sideline to sideline trying to catch Jalen Hurts. Whereas, again, they had kept Taysom in the pocket, especially for the first half. And of course, that defensive line for the Eagles is so good they can rush with 4 down linemen. Instead of utilizing his ability to be able to roll out, put pressure on the defense like they did with what Hurts did with the Eagles, they didn't do that. That I didn't agree with as far as the game plan goes. That surprised me. It's almost like Taysom has to prove that he is a pocket quarterback when at times he's better being the dual threat quarterback. And I thought last week was one of those weeks.
Yeah, and I also thought, and I agree with everything he said, I also felt like you can almost see the gears turning in his head sometimes. He's so cognizant of not turning the ball over.
Right.
that sometimes I think it's to his detriment. He's listening to that Sean Payton voice in his ear saying, "Don't turn it over, don't turn it over." So he's kind of holding the ball a little too long. Yeah, he's hesitant, and I think Sean Payton even knows that. And Sean Payton fell on the sword this week. One of the things I like best about Sean Payton is he will admit he's accountable.
Yes.
And he didn't come up with a very good game plan.
I agree.
I don't think Dennis Allen did, and I think they know it. And I think they realize, I think we're going to see a lot better effort from the Saints, including the coaching staff this week.
I agree, and a little bit more motivation. And look, a lot of people, speaking to the Kansas City, a lot of people think this is fait accompli, that Kansas City is going to come in New Orleans and win. You know, I would say that, you know, I think the Saints are going to be more focused this week, but also this is a team you might see in the Super Bowl.
Right.
So, I mean, you know, again, you better be ready to play, and I'm sure this team's not going into this game thinking, oh, Kansas City's better than us. They're going to go out there and they're going to give 100% effort, and probably a little bit more now after what happened in Philadelphia last week.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a totally different Saints team. Now, whether that's good enough to win a game like this, if Taysom Hill's the quarterback, and I really fully expect him to be playing again this week, and I know we'll talk about that. But here's the thing, Eric. I think internally, if you're Sean Payton, Mickey Loomis, and you're looking at the big picture, the goal is to win a Super Bowl.
Yes.
And winning this game is not necessarily that important in the grand scheme of things. It's an AFC team. I think the real goal for the Saints right now needs to be one of those top two seeds. Yes, they'd love to get the number 1 overall seed, and they still can get it even if they lose this week. I'm not convinced that Green Bay is going to run the table. They've got Tennessee. They got to play at Chicago, a longtime rival. Both those games are dicey. I think they could still trip up 1 or 2 times. But the point is, if you get the number 2 seed, you still get 2 home games, and then you let the chips fall where they may. Does Green Bay stumble along the way? Do you go up to Green Bay and win? It's not the same Lambeau Field with 20,000 fans there.
And it's not the same Saints team either, because they can run the football now.
And win on the road with defense.
Right.
So I think Sean Payton and Mickey Loomis are looking at what's our main objective? Winning the Super Bowl. Everyone agrees the best chances they have are with Drew Brees at quarterback.
Yes.
Rushing him out there this week against Kansas City, if he's not 100% and suffering a setback, is not going to get them to their main objective. So I think they're going to be cautious, maybe rest him another week. You got a quick turnaround to Christmas Day and the Vikings, and that's a big NFC game. So I think that's where their focus is going to be.
And, of course, Brees has been designated to return from IR. They don't have to put him on the active roster. They've got a couple weeks to be able to do that if they want. So, again, there's no reason to rush him back. You mentioned the turnovers. When you look at the situation right now with Taysom Hill, he's approaching Aaron Brooks' all-time fumble record. The one knock against going with Jameis Winston was people were worried about the turnovers. He's turned the ball over in every start. That is an issue. How does he solve that issue? That's got to be an issue, especially with the next couple. If he's got to play the next couple games, or at least in this next game as well.
Well, he's got to protect the ball better, especially when he's a ball carrier.
Right.
Now, there's 2 different kinds of turnovers.
Right.
And Sean Payton's talked about this. When he's dropping back at quarterback and he gets blindsided by Josh Sweat from behind, the ball gets knocked out. That's really not on him. That's on the blocking. I mean, yes, he needs to protect it better, but he can't see that guy coming. He can't have eyes in the back of his head. So those turnovers, I think, are on the offensive line. The protection on that play was not good. That was a bad play call as well. He's trying to let the play develop the route downfield. They were going for a shot play. It's one of those plays, Eric, that if it works and they get Emmanuel Sanders wide open, we're like, oh, my God, what a great call.
Yes.
Aggressive Sean Payton. That's why he's such a winner. And when it doesn't work, we all lambast him. So I live with those plays because I think Sean Payton plays to win. But the turnover issues, I don't feel like it's a huge deal because he's never had that issue before. His first 3 years, he had 1 fumble.
Right.
So I don't know where this is coming from. Internally, they're talking about it, saying we've got to go back and figure it out. He doesn't have huge hands. That's one thing. Drew Brees blessed with huge hands for his size. That's not one of the traits and attributes of Taysom Hill, so that contributes to it. But he's also, I think, so caught up in doing all these things at quarterback. Sometimes I think he loses a little focus, lets the ball slip out. And that's something that Sean Payton acknowledged this week that he's not happy about. I'm sure he's talked to him about.
Yeah, it's an issue. It's an issue, especially again, he's touching the ball every play. I'd like to see him be more of a dual threat quarterback, which I thought we were getting coming into this. But no matter what, whether it was going to be Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston, they have to take care of the football. It's the most dramatic change we've seen in Drew Brees over the last few years. Again, protecting the football. Again, maybe not taking the shot play, not taking the play that that might be a game-changing play, taking the easy play, but making sure that he doesn't turn the ball over.
Yeah, and it's one of the things I think we all have taken for granted with Drew Brees.
Right.
That he doesn't commit negative plays.
No.
Doesn't take very many sacks. And we're seeing all these little subtle nuances that now it's life without Drew Brees.
That's right.
And some of these things we've taken for granted. I'll give you a good example. First play of the game against the Eagles, they call a screen play. They have it set up beautifully. Latavius Murray out in the left flat. Taysom Hill doesn't take long enough to set it up. He should backpedal a little bit more. Draw that defensive line to you, that aggressive defensive line. It's a great play call in the first play of the game. And instead, he gets it out too quickly, and we all see Andres Pete miss the block in the flat when actually it's on Taysom Hill. He's got to take more time and let Pete get out there to get the leverage to set up the block.
Yes.
Instead, everybody blames Andres Pete when actually that's on Taysom Hill. That's a play that Drew Brees makes in his sleep. He's done it so many times. We've seen him get rid of the ball just the last minute. And those little subtle things are what we're all going to miss about Brees when he's not the quarterback.
No doubt about it. And it looks like, again, I will say this for the first time, I feel like this is his last year.
Oh, there's no doubt about it.
Right.
I mean, Sean Payton came out this week and said it.
Right.
I think the whole organization's kind of operating under that guidance.
No doubt about it. Let's take a break. We come back. We'll shift gears to the college game. LSU, Tulane, National Signing Day. Of course, a big win for LSU coming up. And also we'll talk about Pelicans as well. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Our guest tonight is Jeff Duncan of the Athletic, also of Fox 8 Sports, and also accomplished author. We'll be right back.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Experiencing rough weather with a bad roof can be a nightmare. It doesn't have to be.
Suburban Roofing, because when it comes to roofing, there is a difference.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Jeff Duncan of The Athletic and Fox 8 Sports is with us tonight. All right, LSU, 4-5 now, 37-34 winners over number 6 Florida in the Swamp. I thought it was a season narrative-changing win for LSU. With all the toxicity that was surrounding the program, the defections, Ari Gilbert last week jumping ship, again, the possibility of losing all their recruits, which we'll talk about in a few minutes as well. And then, of course, just everything that was going on, the possibility of, again, coaches getting fired, coaches having to retire. I mean, this was a big black cloud over this program. And 54 scholarship players going into the Swamp. And then when you get there, you've got injuries with Stingley and others. Flott gets thrown out the game, for the targeting penalty. And then you're starting a true freshman in Max Johnson. All the cards were against LSU on Saturday night, but honestly, and I've watched a lot of LSU football in my life, I couldn't have been more proud of what I saw on Saturday, the way those guys came to play against a team that honestly, they were overmatched on paper.
Oh, well, I mean, 23.5-point underdogs.
Right.
We haven't seen that happen very often. You could have made a lot of money, as I said on Twitter, betting the Eagles, LSU, teaser parlay. But look, yeah, you're right. It was impressive. It shows, I think it speaks a lot to Ed Orgeron, the leadership on the team, that they stuck together. Now, look, things could have been differently if the guy doesn't throw the shoe.
True.
They could end up losing that game.
Could be.
But the fact that they played so competitively, whether they won or lost, the fact that they took them into the fourth quarter, down to the final minutes with an undermanned roster. And I think we came out of that game feeling much differently about Max Johnson. The fact that the way he played, if you're now on the coaching staff, you're going to have open competition, I think, at quarterback in the future when Miles Brennan comes back. And I think it gave the program some positive momentum and energy, much needed, going into the end of this season, going into recruiting, kind of changed the narrative to some degree. But I still think there's major concerns with everything going on down there. I mean, one win's not going to wipe away some of the issues that they've got to deal with on the coaching staff, some of the decisions that have to be made going forward. But it certainly makes them feel a little better about themselves.
Well, especially after what's been going on. I mean, again, look, I've never seen a season where you just can't. I mean, it reminded me of the old Saints seasons back in the day, where, again, you love to watch the Saints for 16 games, but at some point you're saying, can we just get this over with? Because it's so bad. And that's how it had gotten to the point where it was so toxic of a situation in Baton Rouge. You just wanted to end it. When they put the self-imposed bowl ban on themselves, it was a chuckle on one hand because you're saying, okay, we know you're going to go to a bowl because you're LSU, but again, any other year you're not going because you have a losing record. And then on top of that, do you really want to go to a bowl game? Do we really want to extend this? Okay, but again, those guys came to play. The Max Johnson situation. All year long, Ensminger has been running him as more of a running quarterback, and I talked about on this program and also on the radio show that when he came out of high school, he was one of the top drop back passers in high school, but they weren't utilizing him like that. And what we got to see on Saturday night with his touch, his command of the offense, his ability to go through his progressions, I mean, you could see he's the son of a pro quarterback, and that he's had great coaching through his high school years, because the moment was not too big for Max Johnson in the swamp on that day.
Yeah, I was impressed with his poise, and like you said, the command of the huddle, and his ability to go through the progressions and find the open receivers. All those things were impressive considering the environment and the opponent. This wasn't one of the cellar dwellers. This was the number 6 team in the country that he did against. And I was really impressed with the game plan as well. The fact that they opened things up a little bit, put some confidence, showed some confidence in him. And like I said, I think now they've got to find a quarterback. They've got a decision to make. And I think it's going to hurt LSU down the road, their ability to attract quarterbacks, because I know they got one coming in, but the fact is he's so impressive that I think he's going to be their quarterback in the future. Well,
the good thing is Nussmeier has signed, and he's got ties to the program. Obviously, with his dad, coaching playing for the Saints. Also, you look at the Howard kid, who again his dad played at LSU, and he's the next one in line. So maybe those guys stay. But you're right. TJ Finley may be saying to himself, "What am I going to do now?" You look at Miles Brennan. What does he do in this situation as well? But it's a good problem to have. When you've got quality quarterbacks, because we've seen quarterbacks go down and then the drop-off between the starter and the backup.
And we haven't seen that problem at LSU.
No, we have not.
Joe Burrow changed the dynamic there.
Yeah, he changed it.
And so did Joe Brady. Right. And now I think if you're a quarterback prospect, you look at that offense, this is one you want to play in because they can develop quarterbacks.
Defensively, again, look, the stats don't look good. 609 yards, 4 TDs of 8 times in the red zone. But again, they forced 3 turnovers. I thought they played fairly well. I mean, you look at all the losses on the defensive side of the ball as guys were getting injured, going out of the game. I mean, the secondary was decimated. They pretty much had all young wide receivers. The running back position by the end of the game was decimated. And these guys continued to be able to play for the full 60 minutes. Leads me to, again, what the narrative was going into this game. Changes on the coaching staff. Yeah, we put it away for a week, but it's still there, okay? What do you think happens with Bo Pelini at the end of the season? And there's a lot of rumblings that Steve Ensminger may ultimately retire. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think those are the big decisions that Ed Orgeron has to make to save his job down the road. I think it's to that point. He's going to have one more season to get this thing rectified. This year, make no mistake about it, everyone in LSU athletic program, no one expected this kind of drop-off.
Right.
So precipitous. 4-5 right now. I mean, it's the first time I can remember a defending national championship team dropping off this much.
True.
He has to own the mistake of hiring Bo Pelini, and I think he will. And I would be surprised if he doesn't move on from him. I think Ed Orgeron needs to go out and have that creativity that he showed, that moxie in hiring Joe Brady and fixing the offense like he did.
Right.
He has to go out and find that version of the defense. There's plenty of great young coaches out there.
Yes.
You got to find some modern defensive mind that can come in. You're at LSU.
Yes.
You can hire anybody. You have unlimited resources to find top defensive assistants. He's got to be comfortable in making that hire. He did it 2 years ago. He needs to show it again.
Now, one thing that, again, that when you talk about the narrative, the changing a bit, it continued now with the national early signing period this week. Look, myself, a lot of people were really looking at this hard. Were we going to see mass defections from again, this quote-unquote top 5 class that had verbally committed to the Tigers? And, of course, on Wednesday was the first day you could sign. Wednesday to Friday is the national signing period right now. 19 signees. And of course, it is a top 5 class. Some have it in the top 3. They got the number 1 player in the country, who happens to be the number 1 player in the state of Louisiana, Mason Smith. They only lost 2 commitments to Alabama, where 2 players flipped, but they were able to flip 2 players from Mississippi State, including, again, the number 1 JUCO linebacker in the country. And now Ed Orgeron is saying that, there's a few players, incoming guys, that again, obviously he wants to get the commitments from in February, but also he's going to be looking for some grad transfers as well, and the possibility of having some of his own players, because of the new rules that allow them to stay for another year, possibly staying as well. All of a sudden now, there's not this mass exodus that we thought we might see with these recruits. They hung with LSU.
Yeah, and I think that's important for the perception of the program, the momentum of the program. They could not afford mass defections in this class. They held on to most of those guys. It hurts, obviously, to lose players to your division rival there to Alabama, but Alabama's a juggernaut. They are always going to be a recruiting juggernaut. And I always believe that Ed Orgeron and his staff are going to recruit well. They're always going to own the state of Louisiana. He's a tremendous recruiter. He's a great salesman for the program and goes into homes, identifies with families. So they're always going to recruit well. It's a matter. And they had recruits going into this past year. They had a good roster. I think the retention in the program is what the issue is right now.
But they sell that, don't they? They sell 3 years and out.
But I'm talking about just guys opting out and leaving and transferring to Eric Gilberts of the world.
Right.
They can't afford that. They've got to fix that.
Is that an anomaly, though, this year because of COVID, the ability to be able to transfer without any penalty, guys walking out? I mean, look, it's surprising to see. The guys that are going pro, you say, okay, a guy like Gilbert who committed to this team, and all of a sudden, but I mentioned it last week, players don't come to LSU or big-time programs to get embarrassed on national TV, to not be in national championship contention, and maybe those that feel like this could be a rebuilding are getting out while the getting's good.
Well, I think it's not just LSU. This is something that's almost an epidemic across all of college football, and I think it's going to continue to be an issue. Players come in now, they want to play right away. That's the other thing. People don't want to wait.
Right.
And it's going to be incumbent upon the coaching staff, the leadership in the locker room to rebuild that culture, because I think they lost a little of that this past year.
I agree with that.
Get that thing back.
All right, final thing on LSU. Okay, we can talk about how great the win was. They beat Ole Miss on Saturday. They got a 500 record, which is saying a lot after where they've been in this season. The recruiting looks like it is hung tough in terms of Orgeron holding on to these recruits, but you still got a black cloud over this entire program and the entire athletic program between the sexual assault allegations, the possible cover-up there, what's going on with Our Lady Lake Hospital, also, again, the situation with Will Wade and the basketball program. The NCAA is knocking at the door, and they're knocking hard.
Yeah, and I think Scott Woodward, the athletic director, knows that. And they've tried to rectify things by self-imposing the bowl ban, but I think that's going to be a blip on the radar with LSU, with the NCAA and their investigation. I'm still hearing there's going to be level 1 violations. That could involve some loss of scholarships reduction, also could involve some postseason bans in the future. It's not going away. Trust me, they're eventually going to have to, pay the piper on this thing. including the basketball program. And Scott Woodward and his staff, I think, have their hands full right now with the perception of LSU athletic department, especially with that USA Today story.
And of course, I mean, that was one of the things people were worried about with the recruiting as well. Again, with the negative recruiting out there of again, that LSU's going to be on probation, you're not going to be able to be showcased like you want to be showcased, etc. Interesting to see again how this kind of plays out and how quickly they can resolve this so it doesn't continue to linger on the university.
Yeah, and look, LSU's always going to be a popular destination for recruits. I mean, it's playing at Tiger Stadium, especially when they get the crowds back, hopefully in the future. Players want to play in that environment. It reminds me of the old Florida State days and Bobby Bowden and he's Chief Osceola coming out with the flaming. I mean, that's a sexy environment to play in. I mean, it's popular for recruits, and LSU's got that going for them, and I think it'll always be a top destination for elite recruits because of that.
Switch to Tulane, 6-5 on the season now. They'll be in the Idaho Potato Bowl, taking on Nevada. That is Tuesday, December the 22nd. But yet there's been some shifts within the coaching staff. Again, Will Hall has now moved on to USM as the head coach there. Cody Kennedy followed him. He was the offensive line coach. Last week, Fritz fired longtime defensive coordinator Jack Curtis. He brings back Chris Hampton, the former Green Wave defensive back coach. George Barnett, recently of Miami of Ohio, is now taking over the offensive line duties. So again, a little bit in flux here in terms of the coaching staff. Talk a little bit about the Greenies.
Well, you knew that they weren't going to be able to hang on to Will Hall for too long. And he's going back home to coach Southern Miss. I mean, he's from right down the road. That move made sense. I'm really excited for Will Hall. I think he's going to do a great job there. And that was a very amicable parting. Willie Fritz wished him well. I think he wanted to keep his offensive line coach, but he also understood. And so, look, I think him bringing in Chip Long, who's a good friend of Will Hall, I think that's going to be a lot of continuity there in how they run the offense. They've got exciting young offensive pieces there. Michael Pratt has shown great progress at quarterback. He's going to be the quarterback of the future. They finally solved that riddle a little bit. And they've got some great young offensive linemen that were freshmen that played this year. Tyjae Sharp, the running back from Ponchatoula who got hurt, is going to be a star. So they've got a lot of exciting pieces of the puzzle on offense. They've got to get the defense fixed. I was a little surprised at the move to move on from Jack Curtis. I thought they kind of improved once they had some of the problems with Central Florida. But Central Florida's lighting up everybody. I mean, they have the #1 offense in the country right now. So that surprised me, but it also shows you that Willie Fritz is not going to sit back and rest on his laurels. He wants to continue to improve the program. And LSU, I think if you're a Tulane fan, you need to be excited about the future of the program, because while they lost a couple of games this year that I think they regret, this team easily could have been 8-3. And they let some slip away.
That's right. No. The two losses to SMU and Tulsa, two top 25 teams.
What about Navy?
Right. You had on the ropes in overtime, and then of course with the Navy one, you can't get over the Navy loss. There's just no way around. I mean, that's again, that's unacceptable. With that said, I agree with you about Jack Curtis as well. But I thought that maybe it was about perception. This defense was supposed to be the anchor for this team this year. They underachieved early. They came back later and played well, especially when you look up front. They're going to have at least 3 guys are going to the NFL, on that defensive line. The linebackers got much better as the season went on, but the defensive backfield was decimated in a lot of cases, with guys that graduated and went to the NFL. And, of course, Jack Curtis walked the plank because of that. And look, they've been together since Georgia Southern. So it's not like, again, that he just showed up at Tulane. Those guys have been together as a coaching tandem for a while.
Yeah, and I would say this, and we talked about it a little bit with LSU and Bo Pelini, and I think we all have to remind ourselves of this. It's hard to play defense these days. Offenses, the way the game has evolved, it's difficult. I mean, we see teams trying to defend Tulane. They struggle to defend Tulane. It's hard to play defense whatever level you're on. The advances we've seen in offensive football, we have to remind ourselves it's not like it used to be. And I think the way LSU beat Florida, it reminded me a lot of like the Greg Williams Saints defensive days, where you've got to throw haymakers and come up with a few turnovers because you're not going to stop people. You've got to it's almost like a tennis match. You got to break serve every once in a while, get the ball back to your offense the way the game's played today.
With that said, some bad news for Tulane. Amari Jones is transferring. Again, he's look. That's a loaded offensive backfield. You mentioned Spears, Hudson. I mean, they got a lot of players there that are going to play. Plus, they got incoming freshmen as well. But again, he's a quality player, and you don't like to lose quality players there.
No, he's a big time player.
Right.
I mean, he could play at the NFL level.
Right, I agree.
But they're so loaded in the backfield. I know
Right.
they feel very, very good about their depth there. And it's just a numbers game. It's what's happened in college football these days with the ability to transfer and play right away.
Right.
It's opened up floodgates in recruiting.
Especially this year, because there's no penalty.
Right.
With COVID-19, you can move on to another program, and you don't have to sit out a year.
Eric, I've talked to coaches about this, teams are leaving spots open now.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the recruiting regimen. You leave 4 or 5 spots open because you know there's going to be so much activity in the transfer market.
Right.
You can fill holes in your roster.
Right.
So it's now part of the process of how you procure talent.
As far as procuring talent, Tulane, 16 signees, 9 on defense, 6 on offense, 1 kicker, ranked 74th by 24/7, 82 by rivals, and again, a recruiting class that was national, but also had local players as well.
Yeah, and I think in the past we've seen this formula.
Right.
This coaching staff has shown they can develop players. I like what they're doing across the offensive line. To me, that's been the biggest underrated improvement of the Tulane program. Their ability to find these diamonds in the rough, which is what you have to do at Tulane. You're not going to get the 5-star offensive lineman to come here. You've got to find that guy that maybe played tight end, and you can develop him into a tackle. That's what has to happen at the Tulane level. They've been able to do that, and that's been a big area that they've improved in. This offensive line is going to be a strength of this team going forward.
Yes. The best football program in Louisiana is not in New Orleans or Baton Rouge this year. It's in Lafayette.
Yes.
And the University of Louisiana has played great football all season long. They'll have a second chance at Coastal Carolina this weekend in the Sun Belt Championship. Talk a little bit about the Raging Cajuns.
Well, Billy Napier's done a tremendous job there. He's going to be difficult to hang on to. He's already been getting interviews. I think South Carolina showed interest in him. He's a Nick Saban disciple, coached under Nick Saban's staff, and he's done a great job of building that program. Louisiana Lafayette's always been a program that should have achieved better than they did,
yes,
in my opinion. I mean, they can get great players, great talent within 75 miles of their campus. There's so much talent in South Louisiana, and they've taken advantage of that, and they've built the recruiting ranks there, and also I think done a good job of scheduling. I mean, the fact that they were able to go into Iowa State, beat them this year, this is a team that should be good for a while, but trying to retain Billy Napier I think is going to be difficult because eventually someone's going to come in with deep pockets and hire him away.
Going to be a tough one against Coastal Carolina, but again, it'd be nice to be able to avenge that loss from early in the season.
Yeah, and Coastal Carolina is a big-time program.
No
what
doubt.
they've done there, their
Yes.
head coach as well, is one of the more popular candidates around the country. And so we're seeing these programs, I think, these mid-major, if you will, a non-Power 5,
Yes.
group of 5 programs like Louisiana Lafayette, Coastal Carolina, that I think have built, very competitive programs that no one wants to play if you're in the
True.
Power 5.
It's true.
Because they're talented, yet they don't have the sexy big-time name. And I love this. As someone that grew up, I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky when Louisville was trying to build their program.
Right.
And I love the fact that you saw a school like Florida State. People forget Florida State built their program by going on the road, playing these big-time powers, Oklahoma, Notre Dame.
LSU.
Yes, LSU, and beating them.
Right.
And then no one wanted to play them. Now it's so difficult to do that. No one wants to play anybody.
Right.
And the Power 5 programs, we're seeing it right now with Cincinnati. Unbeaten, and they can't join the party.
Yes.
It goes against athletic competition, everything about the NCAA, what it's about. Let these teams compete. Let's see Georgia play Cincinnati in a game. I would love to see that. But right now, it's like a country club, and they don't want to open it up to everybody.
I would agree. I think you're right on target on that point. Let's shift gears to the Pelicans. Had their first game against Miami, 114-92 winners over Miami. Now, look, both teams did not have their starters. Okay, Bledsoe didn't play. J.J. Redick didn't play. Miami was missing starters as well. But just your first overall impressions of what you saw.
Well, it was our first look at the Stan Van Gundy system.
Right.
And the thing I liked the most about it was the defense and the rebounding.
Me too.
Two huge areas that they were not very good at under Alvin Gentry. It wasn't a point of emphasis for Alvin Gentry and his offensive system. I like that. That's all I wanted to see. commitment to defense, communication on the defensive end, and also rebounding. And then I loved what I saw from Zion Williamson, who looks great. I think everybody wanted to see what kind of shape he was in.
Yes.
He looks like a guy who's carrying himself with a lot more confidence in his second season. And I think what we also are seeing, and we saw this before that game, forget about it, it's just a preseason game.
Sure.
But what we saw in the moves, the transactions from David Griffin and Stan Van Gundy of how they're going to build this roster. Basically, we now know the two pillars are Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson. It's their team now.
Yes.
It's no longer Drew Holiday's being propped up as the guy. He's moved on. They're saying this is Zion Williamson's team, and eventually I think it's going to be his team.
Yes.
But the players they brought in, complementary pieces, Steven Adams, Eric Bledsoe, guys to build around these two young stars, and I think we're just going to see that continue to evolve.
Yeah. I do like the defense. I mean, it was something we did not see under Alvin Gentry. Although, again, defense takes time, and I think that everybody has to realize it's a very short training camp. It is a very short preseason, trying to install a defense and then to get the defensive principles down. Because, again, whether it's rotations, whatever it is, you got a lot of players that are young, that are a couple years removed from college, okay, and that really, again, haven't played a lot of defense if they've been in New Orleans. So, again, they got to learn how to play defense. I can tell you right now, keying on Zion is still lost on the defensive end. You look at Jackson Hayes, lost on the defensive end. A lot of these young players don't play defense well. On the flip side, I was impressed with Brandon Ingram's defense. Off-the-ball defense, in the passing lanes, the steals. But, again, that this has been a point of emphasis for the team, I think makes all the difference in the world.
Well, what about the comment we heard just a couple weeks ago where Alvin Gentry's practices went about 45 minutes.
Right.
The first practice they had with Stan Van Gundy was 3 hours, and they didn't really care much about offense. It was all defensive principles, trying to get down the defensive system that they're going to have there. That spoke volumes to me about where this team's going to go and the change we're going to see eventually take shape with this team, because you're not going to win a title without playing defense at all. It's been proven over and over again. That's an area they got to get better at, not only individually but also collectively.
Yeah, I would agree. The other part of it is, again, offensively. You know, it was that the three-point shot was the main part of their offense under Alvin Gentry. They took their threes the other night within the flow of the offense, okay? And it wasn't like, again, guys, there was an emphasis of trying to get to the boards, trying to get in the plate, playing in the paint, being physical. And for the identity of this team going forward on the players that they brought in, it seems to fit.
Yeah, and it's going to be a work in progress. Like you said, this isn't going to happen overnight.
Right.
It's going to take Stan Van Gundy and his new staff some time to implement these changes, and also the mindset is going to take over an 82-game season. You know, how are they going to put this thing together? I think this team, I think the over/under I saw in Vegas is 36 wins for the Pelicans. I think they're going to go over that. I think they're surprising people. Now they've got to stay healthy.
Right.
They don't have great depth on this team. They go about 8 deep. And we know injuries are inevitable, especially the Pelicans, their history.
Right.
So they got to avoid key injuries for long stretches, I think, to get there. But I like the top 8 of this team a lot. And I think this roster will continue to evolve. I don't think they're done yet making changes.
Right, and I agree with you there. And just looking at the way the roster's set up, I think that Griff is going to be open to more changes. We had a chance to see Kyra Lewis Jr. for a little bit in this game. I'll say this, just my first impressions, didn't seem to be too big for him.
No.
I mean, again, he looked like he fit in. I was expecting a guy slight, because I watched him in Alabama, slight a build, but he was able to take on none on the defensive end and hung with him. He shot the ball fairly well. He had two three-point shot, a mid-range shot that he knocked down. But as soon as he got in, you saw the intensity a little bit, raised a little bit quicker pace, and more ball movement.
Yeah, and he's a guy that, you know, the scouting report we got on him at the draft was he's kind of a poor man's De'Aaron Fox, right?
Right.
Guy with great pace, gets up and down the court, great speed. We saw some of that. And the other thing is, I think the poise you mentioned, it didn't look too big for him. Obviously, it's preseason.
Right, sure.
We're going to see more. But the other thing I like about him is he's a pass-first guy. Again, this goes back to what we talked about earlier. Everything's going to be built around the pillars of Brandon Ingram.
Right.
And Zion Williamson being the stars. This is a guy that's not coming in here thinking, I'm the guy. He's a supporting member to these two stars. That's what they've done. David Griffin, that front office, they're putting pieces around the two stars. This is going to be an ongoing process, changing the culture, getting team first guys in there. And I think Kyra Lewis is a guy, just everything I've heard when we've talked to him, gets it.
Right. You mentioned Zion with the weight loss, but we saw a guy that, again, stayed in the paint, was physical inside. You know, look, even when he misses a shot, his second jump is so quick. He has the ability to get his own offensive rebound, and we saw that a couple times. But the other thing that impressed me was, I think he missed one free throw. He was like 10 for 11 at the free throw line. And if that is going to be the case going forward, where he has really helped himself in terms of getting that free throw percentage up, that's going to help the Pelicans immensely.
And he's going to get to the line a lot.
A lot.
The way he plays down the paint,
right.
He's got to be a better free throw shooter. And I think it speaks volumes about his commitment to try and improve his game as a player, because he can get 25 points a game without ever taking a shot outside the paint, the way he plays on a nightly basis. So he's going to have to be better at the line, there's no doubt.
Love the addition of Steven Adams. Again, I think, his physicality. Again, look, the one thing that I saw, just one preseason game, I'm seeing 4 guys in the paint, and I didn't see that last year, okay? You're lucky if you saw one Pelican player in the paint. But Adams is always going to be in the paint. So again, his physicality, look, he's not a great free throw shooter, he's not a great shooter, but it's the little things that he'll do for this team. And then the big question is going to be Lonzo Ball going forward. They have a decision to make with him by the All-Star break, by the trading deadline, because of next year will be the last year of his deal. What do you think happens there? Because, is that going to be a guy that's going to be a cornerstone here, or is there a possibility that he will be shopped?
Well, Stan Van Gundy said he loves Lonzo Ball, and I think he's really interested to seeing how he takes to the offensive and defensive principles that he's going to implement this year. But this is going to be an evaluation period. How does he fit into the system, and how much does he buy into the system? We're going to find out. I think he will. I think he's going to like it. He's a kind of an old school player. I mean, I know he's new school in a lot of ways with the balls, but he's an old school player the way he plays, and Stan Van Gundy's an old school coach. And I look real quick about Steven Adams. He's basically a 7-foot glue guy, the ultimate glue guy. And Pelicans fans are going to love this guy. This is a guy we're going to see on a Mardi Gras float throwing beads. Absolutely no doubt about it. He's going to love the New Orleans environment and culture. It's going to be a great fit.
I agree. Before we finish up, Alexander Walker, Jackson Hayes, 2 rookies that contributed last year that are going to be expected to contribute even more. And Alexander Walker's first time within a Van Gundy system, he's seen the flourish. Hayes still has that athletic ability. Both guys are going to have to step their games up.
Yeah, they've got to make progress this year. There's no doubt about it. I mean, this is the time when you expect big leaps in their development. And Alexander Walker, I think, is a key guy for them because they need help on the wing. They need him to kind of play more minutes. Last year was basically a redshirt year for him. He's got to step forward.
No doubt. Jeff, one more time, tell the folks how they can get the book.
Just go to the Facebook page, Peyton and Breeze book Facebook page. If you're interested in getting a copy ordered, I can still get it out in time for the holidays. Even if not, I can get it to you in the mail as quickly as possible. Or go to my Twitter handle @JeffDuncan_. Drop me a note in there, direct message or something, and we'll make sure we get some orders out.
Great book. Thanks for being with us as well. That's Jeff Duncan, again, of The Athletic, also Fox 8 Sports. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program at 6 p.m. right here on WLAE-TV on Thursday nights. Also on WLAE-TV 2 at 10 p.m. on Thursday nights. On Pelican Sports Television, 9 o'clock on Friday nights, 10 o'clock on WLAE, 2 a.m. on The Deuce, WLAE-TV 2 on Saturday mornings, and also Saturday afternoon at 5 o'clock on Pelican Sports Television. You can catch me on the radio on 106.1 FM. That is 4 to 6 weekdays. You can listen live at ericasher.com. The podcast is on all of the major podcasting platforms. Apple, iHeart, Google, Anchor, you name it, it's on there. You can check that out there. And of course, all the previous episodes of this program can be seen at ericasher.com, also the WLAE-TV YouTube page, and on my social media platforms. Also, again, special thanks to Jeff Duncan for joining us on the program. Also, the WLE production staff, which do a fantastic job each and every week. Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Tommy O'Connor, Tommy Fairley, and my director, William Hill. And a special thanks to the underwriters of this program. They keep this program going. Please support those underwriters. Thank you so much for watching this edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. We'll check you out next week for the Christmas edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. Until then, my name is Eric Asher. Have a great day.